Hello, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and we are starting a new book, The Swiss Family Robinson. And The Swiss Family Robinson is by, Johann Wyss. Okay, and it's a very old book. The copyright page is not in here, but it's been around a really, really long time. The Swiss Family Robinson. This is a really cool book. I've been wanting to read it for a long time. Shipwrecked. Faced with the problem of survival, the Robinson family resourcefully learns to make use of all manners. This is an intro, okay? Of all manner of flora and fauna contained on the island on which they are marooned. The wreck itself proves to be a lucky find. The father, mother, and 4 boys explore the wondrous island until they find a site and build their ingenious treehouse. With the passing years, memories of their European home fade, and the Robinsons learn to love their island home, which they name New Switzerland. Dwelling comfortably, the Swiss family never realizes how meaningful their island has become, or how deep their roots have penetrated, until one day a ship anchors offshore and offers them the chance to return to civilization. A perfect desert island story, an ideal family adventure, this chronicle has entertained millions of readers. So that's the intro to the book we're going to read. Chapter 1. Shipwrecked and alone. For many days we have been tempest-tossed. 6 times had the darkness closed over a wild and terrific scene, and returned light as often brought but renewed distress, for the raging storm increased in fury until on the 7th day all hope was lost. We were driven completely out of our course. No conjecture could be formed as to our whereabouts. The crew had lost heart and were utterly exhausted by incessant labor. The riven mast had gone by the board. Leaks had been sprung in every direction, and the water which rushed in gained upon us rapidly. Instead of reckless oaths, the seamen now uttered frantic cries to God for mercy, mingled with strange and often ludicrous vows to be performed should deliverance be granted. Every man on board alternately commended his soul to his Creator and strove to bethink himself of some means of saving his life. My heart sank as I looked round upon my family in the midst of these horrors. Our 4 young sons were overpowered by terror. "Dear children," said I, "if the Lord will, he can save us even from this fearful peril. If not, let us calmly yield our lives into his hand and think of the joy and blessedness of finding ourselves forever and ever united in that happy home above." Okay, so that's a daddy of faith, isn't it? All right. He is scared. Everybody is scared for their life. The ship is going down. What does it say here? It says the incessant labor, the crew is just working full time, but they're taking on water. Okay, it says that the leaks have been sprung in every direction and the water has rushed in. So the boat is taking on water. And now the crew, the seamen who are sailors and sometimes don't talk very nicely, they're no longer even saying ugly words. They are on their knees praying before God that he would save them. Okay, and then this daddy is on the boat and he's looking at his 4 sons and his family, and he's trying to comfort them that maybe they're going to go home and be with Jesus if they're not saved. Wow. Okay. At these words, my weeping wife looked bravely up, and as the boys clustered around her, she began to cheer and encourage them with calm and loving words. I rejoiced to see her fortitude, though my heart was ready to break as I gazed on my dear ones. We knelt down together, one after another, praying with deep earnestness and emotion. Fritz, in particular, besought help and deliverance for his dear parents and brothers as though quite forgetting himself. Our hearts were soothed by the never-failing comfort of childlike, confiding prayer, and the horror of our situation seemed less overwhelming. Ah, thought I, the Lord will hear our prayer. He will help us. Amid the roar of the thundering waves, I suddenly heard the cry of "Land! Land!" while at the same instant the ship struck with a frightful shock, which threw everyone to the deck and seemed to threaten her immediate destruction. Dreadful sounds betokened the breaking up of the ship, and the roaring waters poured in on all sides. Then the voice of the captain was heard above the tumult, shouting, "Lower away the boats! We are lost!" "Lost!" I exclaimed, and the word went like a dagger to my heart. But seeing my children's terror renewed, I composed myself, calling out cheerfully, "Take courage, my boys! We are all above water yet. There is land not far off. Let us do our best to reach it. You know God helps those who help themselves." With that, I left them and went on deck. With what was my horror when, through the foam and the spray, I beheld the only remaining boat leave the ship. The last of the seamen spring into her and push off. Regardless of my cries and entreaties that we might be allowed to share their slender chance of preserving their lives, my voice was drowned in the howling of the blast, and even had the crew wished it, the return of the boat was impossible. So what's happened? All of the crew of the ship has left the passengers. The man and his wife and the 4 boys are left on the sinking ship, and everybody has taken the lifeboats and left them alone. Casting my eyes despairingly around, I became gradually aware that our position was by no means hopeless, inasmuch as the stern of the ship containing our cabin was jammed between 2 high rocks, and was partly raised from among the breakers, which dashed the forepart to pieces. As the clouds of mist and rain drove past, I could make out, through rents in the vaporous curtain, a line of rocky coast, and rugged as it was, my heart bounded toward it as a sign of help in an hour of need. Yet the sense of our lonely and forsaken condition weighed heavily upon me as I returned to my family, constraining myself to say with a smile, "Courage, dear ones. Although our good ship will never sail more, she is so placed that our cabin will remain above water, and tomorrow, if the wind and the waves abate, I see no reason why we should not be able to get to shore." These few words had an immediate effect on the spirits of my children, who at once regarded our problematical chance of escaping as a happy certainty, and began to enjoy the relief from the violent pitching and rolling of the vessel. So the boat's now stuck on the rocks, and so it's not pitching like it was before when it was on the waves. My wife, however, perceived my distress and anxiety in spite of my forced composure, and I made her comprehend our real situation, greatly fearing the effect of the intelligence on her nerves. But not for a moment did her courage and trust in Providence forsake her, and on seeing this, my fortitude revived. So what's he saying? That even though his wife sees how desperate their situation is, she does not stop trusting in God. Okay, providence is written with a capital P, and it's referring to God above. So they're still trusting in the Lord. "We must find some food and take a good supper," said she. "It will never do to grow faint by fasting too long. We shall require our utmost strength tomorrow." Night drew on apace. The storm was as fierce as ever, and at intervals we were startled by crashes announcing further damage to our unfortunate ship. "God will help us soon now, won't he, Father?" said my youngest child. "You silly little thing," said Fritz, my eldest son, sharply. "Don't you know that we must not settle what God is to do for us? We must have patience and wait his time." Very well said. Had it been said kindly, Fritz, my boy," says the dad. "You too often speak harshly to your brothers, although you may not mean to do so." A good meal now ready, my youngsters ate heartily, and retiring to rest were speedily fast asleep. Fritz, who was of an age to be aware of the real danger we were in, kept watch with us. After a long silence, "Father," said he, "don't you think we might contrive swimming belts for Mother and the boys? With those we might all escape to land, for you and I can swim." "Your idea is so good," answered I, "that I shall arrange something at once, in case of an accident during the night." We immediately searched about for what would answer the purpose, and fortunately got hold of a number of empty flasks and tin canisters, which we connected two and two together so as to form floats sufficiently buoyant to support a person in the water, and my wife and young sons each willingly put one on. I then provided myself with matches, knives, cord, and other portable objects, trusting that, should the vessel go to pieces before daylight, we might gain the shore not wholly destitute. In other words, he wanted to have some of the things on the boat in case the boat broke up in the middle of the night and they had to swim for shore. Fritz, as well as his brothers, now slept soundly. Throughout the night, my wife and I maintained our prayerful watch, dreading at every fresh sound some fatal change in the position of the wreck. At length, the faint dawn of day appeared. The long, weary night was over, and with thankful hearts, we perceived that the gale had begun to moderate. Blue sky was seen above us, and the lovely hues of sunrise adorned the eastern horizon. I aroused the boys, and we assembled on the remaining portion of the deck, when they, to their surprise, discovered that no one else was on board. "Hello, Papa! What has become of everybody? Are the sailors all gone? Have they taken away the boats? Oh, Papa, why did they leave us behind? What can we do by ourselves?" "My good children," I replied, "we must not despair, although we seem deserted. See how those on whose skill and good faith we depended have left us cruelly to our fate in the hour of danger. God will never do so. He has not forsaken us, and we will trust him still. Only let us bestir ourselves, and each cheerily do his best, who has anything to purpose." "The sea will soon be calm enough for swimming," said Fritz. "And that would be all very fine for you," exclaimed Ernest. "But think of Mother and the rest of us. Why not build a raft and all get on shore together?" "We should find it difficult, I think, to make a raft that would carry us safe to shore. However, we must contrive something, and first let each try to procure what will be of most use to us." So they're going to go around the ship seeking for things that they can use for a raft. Away we all went to see what was to be found, I myself proceeding to examine, as of great consequence, the supplies of provisions and fresh water within our reach. My wife took our youngest son, France, to help her to feed the unfortunate animals on board, who were in a pitiful plight, having been neglected for several days. Fritz hastened to the arms chest, Ernest to look for tools, and Jack went towards the captain's cabin, the door of which he no longer opened than he had no sooner opened than out sprang two splendid large dogs, who testified their extreme delight and gratitude by such tremendous bounds that they knocked their deliverer completely head over heels, frightening him nearly out of his wits. Jack did not long yield to either fear nor anger. He presently recovered himself. The dogs seemed to ask pardon by vehemently licking his face and hands, and so seizing the larger by the ears, he jumped on his back, and to my great amusement coolly rode to meet me as I came up the hatchway. So these must be some mighty big dogs if the little boy could ride on their back. When we assembled in the cabin, we all displayed our treasures. Okay, so we're going to stop there because this chapter is quite long. But let's talk about where they are, because this is some pretty old language. Like I said, this is a very famous and very old book, but it's a very good book. Okay, so they've all gone searching all by themselves on the boat. They've all gone searching to see what they can find to help them get to shore. And so one of the boys went to the mom, and the youngest boy went to take care of all the animals that were on board that were stuck. And then Fritz went to the arms chest. So that would be where the weapons would be, right? And Ernest went to the tool chest. He went to look for tools. And Jack went to the captain's cabin. Now, he wasn't looking for dogs, but that's what he found, locked in the captain's cabin. And then they all came back, and now they're going to tell us what they have gathered from their hunt for supplies. And that's all we're going to read today of this book, but it's already exciting, and it's going to get much more exciting as we go along. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.